I don't know if I've ever heard a woman say that they're looking forward to menopause. Have you? But it's coming for all of us blessed to reach that age. Menopause has such a bad rap that women dread it. But since we could spend potentially decades in menopause, wouldn't it make sense to learn about it, prepare for it, and get to a place in our mindset where we feel empowered to be in that season of life? Julie Daniluk is going to help us do that in this podcast episode. She's a nutritionist that specializes in serving women specifically to help them go through menopause and postmenopause with grace and confidence. Some things that we're going to cover are the best ways to prepare for menopause, the challenges of menopause, key components to balancing hormones, and maintaining a healthy weight. This is such a great episode to have in your back pocket. Thanks for spending a piece of your day here on the show with us. As always, we greatly appreciate your ratings and reviews to help us keep growing. Welcome to the Daily Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Meredith. I've led my family on a transformative health journey for over a decade, and now I help other families do the same. This is a place where busy moms can learn about healthy living. I hope that what you learn here helps you feel empowered to take the next step in your family's health journey. Julie, thanks so much for joining the Daily Wellness Podcast.
Oh, it is fantastic to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, I think we should just start with you telling us how you became a nutritionist. What was it that really drove you to that? And then I'd love to hear what made you kind of focus in on serving women as well.
As a little kid, I had profound ADHD, and my mom figured out that I was actually totally intolerant to red dye. And so, out of my menu, my symptoms went down like 90%, and I went from D's to straight A's. And then I became an actress and was reading a lot about nutrition because I just was so in love with it. And then I went traveling around the world and got extremely sick in Thailand, nearly died. Seriously, I had to be pumped full of antibiotics to save my life because I had a form of food poisoning that causes temporary paralysis. I had to be carried in.
Oh my gosh, that had to be so scary.
Yeah, super scary. So then I came home with post-infectious colitis and arthritis symptoms. My arthritis flared because when your bowel's really irritated, that's what happens. And I decided to commit every cell of my being to figuring it out and wrote a book called Meals to Heal Inflammation, which luckily has become an international bestseller. So that started me on the path. And then since then, I am so fortunate to help people truly break up with sugar, break up with, I have to now face a celiac diagnosis. So I'm helping people get off of wheat and getting off of anything that causes irritation in your gut lining will end up translating to inflammation in the body part in which you're most susceptible genetically. So I help people understand inflammation and how to get rid of it. And what's interesting is all's fine and good until I hit menopause. And then when the anvil hot flashes were hitting, I was like, okay, I guess I got to also learn all about hormones and help women transition to menopause elegantly. So that's why I'm here to
Great.
help you guys today, hopefully understand a little bit more about this crazy, mysterious thing that happens at 50.
Yes, teach me all the things.
Oh boy, where do we start?
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, as a 42-year-old, I would love to know, who hasn't hit menopause yet, I would love to know kind of your tips for leading up to menopause. What are some of the best things I can do to put myself in a really good place for that time of life?
The most important thing that you could do is learn to actually control your blood sugar like it's your most important job, because it turns out that menopause is directly tied to your blood sugar. That if your blood sugar goes wildly up and then comes back down in that moment where your blood sugar starts going below baseline, because let's face it, when you eat something that's high in flour or sugar or anything that's insulin spiking, that insulin will drive sugar into your cells, causing you to have actually low blood sugar. And sometimes it goes below baseline. And when it does that, it actually creates an autonomic nervous system response in menopause. So when you're in menopause, the low blood sugar moments are going to be putting you into fight or flight and cause trigger a hot flash. And I wish women knew that there's a direct correlation between blood sugar management and their hot flashes. And even when people say, oh, it's stress related, because oftentimes it is, there's often that connection point there where maybe you drank too much coffee that morning, or your boss dropped more work on your plate and you're just super stressed. And that's actually going to also cause this trigger, this autonomic nervous system trigger, that's going to create the potential of a really bad hot flash. So if we really keep our blood sugar on the level by avoiding those high sugar, high flour foods and really working on that, it's also going to prevent that menopausal weight gain that so many women deal with. Because if you look at your HbA1c, it will creep up every measurement close to 50, then over 50. It's just unbelievable how hard it is for a woman to keep insulin sensitivity. So that has become my absolute passion, is how to keep our every receptor receiving the sugars so that it doesn't actually cause insulin resistance.
And what have you found out? How do you do that? How do you teach people to pay attention to their blood sugar and know when it's spiked? How can you tell in the first place? And then what do you do to regulate that?
Sure. So one of my favorite tools is a continuous glucose monitor. It's very inexpensive. It doesn't have to be put through with a prescription, luckily. Now it's available widely. Slap that on for 2 weeks and start noticing all the foods that really elevate your blood sugar. So the crackers, the cookies, the muffins, the cakes, those are common foods. But what people are surprised by is how white rice will do it, or white potato will do it. Like starches, bread will spike your blood sugar, often higher than table sugar, which is shocking to people, right? They're like, that doesn't make sense. But it's those long starches get broken down. The second it hits the amylase, which is the digestive enzyme in your mouth, it splits it into sugars. So you're making sugar right here. So if you're a starch tooth, know that you're just seconds away from being a sugar tooth. And we want to really buffer it up. So the biggest tool that I can drop right away is eating foods in the right order, make a massive difference. So I ran this experiment on myself where I was wearing a continuous glucose monitor, and I had like a grain-free bagel, and then I had a salad with some salad dressing, and then I had some lovely eggs, and I ate my breakfast in that order, and my blood sugar spiked up to 8.5. And then the next day, I did the exact same amount of food so I could really have a proper experiment. And I ate the salad with oil first, and then I ate the eggs, and then I had the bagel last. And by just changing the order of the food and carefully, like eating slowly, I was able to reduce that spike by over a third. And when you go to the actual study that this is based on, which it was discovered that eating food in the right order makes a profound difference. In 2015, they said that overall, you'll see a reduction of blood sugars by up to a third just by changing the order. And that's really important for people who are new to this world of balancing your blood sugar. Because if I say to people, oh yeah, you want to just get off of sugar and flour, they're like, it hits a panic switch. Say, okay, first things first, let's just notice what we notice. Let's just put on the continuous glucose monitor and start registering the impact of the food. Because there's something fantastic called the Hawthorne effect, where once you actually have the accountability, you start to register, oh, I want to change, instead of I have to change. Because we need to really change the mindset of, oh, I have to do this too. And it's like, wow, I have a tool here that's going to work for me, and how lucky that at least I am figuring it out, where so many people are in the dark, So, and also, as long as you make the food absolutely delicious, you don't feel the deprivation. So I'm all about the substitution, right? So instead of regular flour pancakes, I make my pancakes with coconut flour and lots of eggs, so that it keeps the blood sugar super balanced, right? Then I make a fruit compote with really nice sweetener that you may have heard of called monk fruit, which is super sweet but has no caloric value and doesn't spike your insulin. So I'm making a fruit compote instead of having heavy fake maple syrup. Blood sugar soar. So it's just doing those direct substitutions that have you go, oh, I can have just as much fun. I can be at a brunch. I can enjoy my family. We can all eat the same food. I don't have to be the weirdo in the corner. And actually have change, see real serious blood sugar balance.
Yeah. So you're saying that the blood sugar balance really helps us with our hormones, right?
It's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I would say I actually feel it's the most important thing because people don't realize that even in perimenopause, if you keep spiking your blood sugar, you're going to create estrogen dominance. And that is going to be a serious problem because as your insulin's high, your estrogen's going to keep trumping your progesterone. And then you have shorter and shorter cycles, and you have really cranky symptoms like the adipose weight gain around the middle, the irritability, the PMS, like all of those things are from this crescendo. So, right, I'm so glad you asked because we need to address this stuff as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And, but it's never too late. Even if you found this podcast when you're 55, there's still massive things you can do.
Right. I love that tip because I feel like no matter what stage of life you're in, like reducing your blood sugar, like is going to help with your inflammation, which is going to help with everything.
Exactly. Inflammation is the underpinning of every disease state. You know, arthritis, bursitis, colitis, diverticulitis. I could build a rap song from every itis.
No, I hear it.
Yes, the list. Yeah, for sure.
Love that. Talk to us about the mindset kind of going into menopause. Like I hear menopause and I think, oh no, like this is going to be horrible. Like, I don't know. Is that something that we really need to be afraid of?
Well, one thing that, because my mother just was a hot flash queen. She would tear around the house. So I was already like you, like, oh my gosh, what am I going to have to deal with? Yeah. And so I think a big piece is, okay, this change is going to happen, whether I like it or not. So I can choose it powerfully, and I can be one of the, 1 in 100 women who walk through this empowered and leading and enjoying the moments and remembering like it's a privilege to hit menopause. Because so many women, we have to remember all of our loved ones that don't make 50 and how, okay, this is a great chance. I can't believe I just went so morbid on you, but I'll get back to mindset. I just have a dear girlfriend dealing with profound breast cancer right now. And I just think like, wow, we have such an opportunity to relish in 50 to 60 is our highest earning years. Typically, they are a time of power. So one thing that I watched with my mother-in-law is I saw her become a very powerful woman after being very much like a people pleaser. She found her voice and she found this strength, and that was so beautiful. So that's one thing that I've really emulated is coming into my 50s. Like when we do the work, we are able to get to this really like, I'm the queen, I'm not the princess. And it's actually a really nice place to be,
Yeah, I mean, we've learned a lot by that point in life, right?
Yeah, and you can claim your power and you can know you're a wise woman. And that is a nice thing to move out of that state of, just you're often a place of having lots to offer and lots of great things to look forward to and a lot more travel. Like there's so many good things. Like I love the fact that I don't bleed anymore.
Yeah.
And that's
going to be a plus.
on all of that. I love the fact that my PMS, that used to be quite significant. Now my moods are just always the same. Like I don't have like these hills and valleys. I don't have to like try to look at my travel calendar and try to guess when I can travel in a free way, So there's so many good things about menopause. So I want to give people that and then say, how did I work on mindset? Well, I actually went to therapy and worked with a very special type of therapy called EMDR. Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's eye movement desensitization and repatterning. And it's a type of therapy that's very short term that actually walks you through your life, because everyone has trauma, and find the traumatic moments of your life and rewrite the script and park the trauma in a part of your brain that says resolved, so that you don't have to constantly revisit it. You don't have to get triggered. Because we're kind of trigger machines, right? Like, we're machines. We walk around and we're like, oh, that bugs me. Oh, that bugs me. So when we're able to park these things, like my girlfriend had profound dog aversion. She had just hated dogs so much that if she saw a dog, she was attacked as a child. So she would just go complete deer in the headlights, and it would wreck her day, right? So she went to EMDR and was deprogrammed, or I can't say deprogrammed. It's repatterning. She ended up really addressing it, and it was amazing how she can stand in a room with a dog and not have any reaction. So similarly, I had a very traumatic thing happen in my life. So by parking that in the resolve file, all of a sudden it frees up so much joy and allows you to be closer to people and just live in your body contented. So therapy is great. There's another tool in our menopausal kind of preparation kit is let's address our past so that we can stand powerfully in our present.
Right. Wow, I love that. Thank you for sharing all of those tips. I think that women just aren't educated about hormones in general, definitely not like menopause, and how to get through and through menopause, feeling great. So and if you think about it, like if you do get to your 50s, and you live to 80 or 90, I mean, you have a lot of life in those years. So it's really refreshing to just hear someone say, like, these years can be full of you can bring wisdom into these years. You can bring your empowerment into these years. You can be educated, about our health and hormones and feel great during these years. That's not the message really that we hear typically about that stage of life. So I really love that.
I also want to bring one more thing into it, strength. Did you know that as your estrogen and progesterone drops off, your testosterone does have an option to be very present in your 50s, and you can get very, very strong. And that's one thing that I've chosen to do to combat weight gain, because trust me, I looked at food and I would gain weight. It would drive me crazy.
Yes.
I figured out between the blood sugar balancing and weight training, it was amazing how you're able to lean out and put muscle on. And that's going to help you age so elegantly, because we need muscle for coordination so we don't fall. And falling is really one of the leading causes of death that we don't talk about. Well, it's great to have strength. And you get that in your 50s. There's so many beautiful weightlifters. If you go to any of these shows, the bodybuilding shows, you'll see them. So many powerful 50-year-old women getting into the best shape of their life. And I'm like, wow, I wish I knew about this world of strength training before 50, but I didn't know until I was about 48 was the first time I walked into, lift any serious weight and
yeah,
it's fun to get strong.
Yeah. I've heard that we can kind of lose muscle mass over time as we age. So is that what you're saying? Like with diet and with strength training, you've been able to retain that and even grow your muscle mass?
Yeah, I know. A lot of women feel, oh, it's just fait accompli. I'm just going to lose muscle as I age. But it's in part because, when I graduated nutrition school in 1999, we were told that we only needed 0.7 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And that is ridiculously low. That is so low and so wrong. Now, all the new literature is saying 1.5 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. And when you actually put that in, is it the fact that we lose all this muscle after 50, or is it the fact that we don't give our body what we need to keep the muscle on?
And great question.
So that's why I've actually now, this was one of my big tips. I have I share tips here, and I'm like 100 grams of protein per day, minimum. Ladies, you have to get it, and you need to prioritize it to the point where, I will literally have dinner for breakfast just to get some serious protein into me. So can it be a piece of chicken right out of the morning? Like a lot of people like, really, salad and chicken for breakfast? Yeah, when you get used to that, then you're not having these highs and lows with your blood sugar, and your moods stay really nice and balanced as well. And you feel smarter because those blood sugar highs and then crashes, you're just going to be brain fogged, So it really is a great thing. It works.
Yeah. What would you say to women in menopause that are suffering right now? What would you recommend to them, or how would you have them to even start kind of turning that around?
I think the biggest thing, and I know we've talked mindset, but starting with this self-compassion piece has been extremely helpful, and getting into help with someone that wants to listen and look at where you're at with your hormones, and then incrementally improve things by focusing on anti-inflammatory nutrition. So I believe wholeheartedly, like, let's look at the issues: osteoporosis or osteopenia. We've got our profound arthritis potential. Women in menopause, unfortunately, suffer a lot more than men with joint pain because estrogen is actually anti-inflammatory to the joints. So we really want to look at that anti-inflammatory nutrition as an act of self-love. I just want you to put a new filter question in when you look down at a plate of food. Is this food for self-love, or is this food for self-harm? Yes. So many people are like, I'm having a bad day, I deserve chocolate.
Yeah.
Okay, but is that chocolate? It's not the chocolate, but is it the white sugar and the dairy and the crap oils that they're adding to the chocolate? Is that actually going to be harming you and leading you like 5 minutes of pleasure, 24 hours of pain? Where you can really find things like, I have this incredible new white chocolate recipe, which I guess I have to include in the show notes now. It's so delicious, but has no sugar in it at all. And that is heavenly, right? So you're having all this pleasure, all this fun, but you're not jamming your blood sugar up and then down, and you're not in it's the inflammatory oils that we should talk about as well, because people are living on oils that are, think of yourself like the Tin Man. Like, you can either create more oxidation and more, or you can actually lubricate your joints, improve your neurochemistry, and balance your hormones with the right fats.
Yeah. I did want you to kind of clarify what you meant by the anti-inflammatory nutrition. I mean, we talked about, keeping the blood sugar stable, and now you've mentioned oils, and we've talked about protein a little bit. So can you just kind of clarify what to you really an anti-inflammatory diet looks like or includes?
Sure. So just to clarify, that inflammation is the body's emergency healing response system. So something's amiss, and there's these causes of inflammation like redness, heat, pain, swelling, loss of function. But why is it happening, right? So we have to get underneath that to the cause. And I see the causes as being 4 things that start with the letter I. So it could be injury. So you have to repair those injuries, especially just like traumas, we collect them over a lifetime. So we work on strength training around those, or rehab of some kind.
Right.
And then we've got our actual big one of being infections. So for ladies approaching 50, perimenopausal, classic time, do you have SIBOs? Do you have H. pylori? Do you have candida? Do you have any number of these things that are causing major inflammation in your body, right? And then we've got the imbalance piece, which is the blood sugar imbalance causing hormonal imbalance. We've talked a great deal about that one. And then the irritation piece, we have to remember that there's toxins coming into our system. So we want to detoxify with our menu. And then we also want to get rid of our food allergens, because those are irritants to the bowel lining that will cause inflammation through your whole system. So that's why when we get rid of our irritants that are personal, so many women have low thyroid as we get towards menopause, right?
Yeah.
We got to heal that by addressing the foods that cause our thyroid to tank. Sorry, but wheat can be that culprit.
Yeah.
People with Hashimoto's, unfortunately, gluten looks a lot like your thyroid So your body attacks your thyroid if you're sensitive to gluten. So that's been a big piece of my practice, is helping people get off their food allergens. And that's very personalized. And you can go have testing. If you the type of brain that loves testing, we can actually test to see if you have an overgrowth of any of the infections I talked about. There's a GI map test that's super awesome that you can run a test to see, do you have any infections? And then we would definitely want to run a zonulin test potentially, which is testing if you have leaky gut syndrome, which is what causes a lot of the joint pain. A lot of the chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia symptoms are all caused by this gapping in your gut lining. So you can see how we got a lot of things going on. The menu has to match that. So it's very individualized, but overarching the menu is tons of anti-inflammatory plants, lots of anti-inflammatory oils, especially omega-3, omega-9. So omega-3 is your fish, your flax, your hemp, your algae. Those are all good. And then your omega-9s are your olives, your macadamia nuts, your avocados. Those are all exceptional. And then we're wanting to pull down the inflammatory oils because they cause insulin resistance, they cause inflammation, they cause major problems, dissonance in your body. So that would be your soy oil, your corn oil, your canola oil, your cottonseed oil. These genetically modified, highly processed oils we know cause inflammation. So it's it's cool because the anti-inflammatory menu is not just about what you put in, it's often what you take out that makes a massive difference.
Oh, I love that distinction. That's so true. Like it definitely is not just about adding things, because if you add things without subtracting what's causing the inflammation to begin with, you're going to be kind of fighting yourself.
Totally.
Yeah. That's great. So we have what was the fourth one? We had injury, infections, irritations,
and imbalances. So
imbalances.
It's nutritional imbalances, typically too low protein, too high carbohydrate, that causes hormonal imbalances. Like everyone's like, why are my hormones so out of balance? And I'm like, do we get all the things and nutrient imbalances too, like B vitamin imbalances, like the birth control pill or hormone replacement therapy causes a massive B vitamin deficiency that's never talked about. So do you have enough B vitamins to clear your estrogen? Is that the underpinning of your estrogen dominance? So I'm always like, okay, let's address nutrition, because that, if you think about it, nutrition can heal an injury. Nutrition can kill off an infection. Nutrition can help us with those hormonal imbalances. And nutrition can help us heal from the irritations that are causing us to have profound inflammation head to toe. Like most people don't realize that their joint pain's actually caused by their gut inflammation. And that once we heal that, we see our joint pain disappear. I have so many clients that have joint pain disappear in 2 to 4 weeks. Gone.
Oh, what a blessing. Right?
Hip replacement. Like, what? I don't understand. So you don't have to stick in this, it's just the way it is.
Oh, amen.
I believe that's the way it is, because I see miracles every day.
Yes. Preach it. So would you say like a woman who is pre or perimenopausal could have the same diet as a menopausal woman, or what would be some distinctions there?
Well, I think women who are still menstruating have to be mindful that they get enough food and that they get enough food early in the morning. There's no intense intermittent fasting for a fertile woman, in my opinion. Having been through it and being an advocate of intermittent fasting, I still think that we have to have a much wider eating window to have great and happy hormones and enough progesterone and for you to feel good in your skin. So we wouldn't go as low carb with a woman who's in her childbearing years. Where postmenopausal, because so many of us are totally insulin resistant, we would want to start checking if people are open to having days where they cycle into a lower carb menu and then when they're athletic or when I call it earning your dates.
Yeah.
It's my favorite like sweetener for women who want like something that actually has calories in it.
Yeah.
Have on athletic days when you've worked it off and your insulin sensitivity immediately improves when we do any physical activity, then you could afford to have some carbs. But if you're super sedentary and you're super insulin resistant, you can see why sugars and flours and carbs become inflammatory to that person, not overarching, but like to that person, because they no longer deal with it. They no longer. So if, just to get people around insulin resistance, if you don't have insulin working correctly, you can't get sugar inside the cell, right? So it sits outside the cell. And what does it do out there? It works like a massive flamethrower and causes inflammation on the cells of the body. So it's causing inflammation in your eyes. It turns up as cataracts. In your joints, it turns up as arthritis. In your skin, it turns up as weathering. In every part of your body, in your arteries, it turns up as atherosclerosis, as like hardening of the arteries. So you can see how this just a beautiful macronutrient, this is carbohydrate, is great until you can't deal with it anymore. If you lost the ability to handle it, that's when it becomes inflammatory. So that's why with insulin-resistant women over 50, we would want to really, really work on a lower carb menu that's delicious so that they can enjoy fats and proteins and just have enough of the good carbs like berries that are low enough in carbohydrate but high in your protective antioxidants that you enjoy your menu. So I'm not like crazy, like you have to go keto, like less than 5% carbs, but we definitely want to make every carb count.
I'm glad you mentioned intermittent fasting because that was literally the next question I was going to ask, like what your thoughts on that were, which you kind of already answered for us. So that's really interesting because I feel like it's so like hot and cold, people's opinions on fasting for women.
And I've been intermittent fasting hardcore for 4 years now. And I have got it down, but because my thyroid is not as strong as it used to be, I cannot fast in the morning. I have to eat by 9 or 10 in the morning. And I highly recommend everyone think about that. Do you have the metabolic strength? That's why men fast well, where women are way more delicate. And on nights when I'm alone and I'm not entertaining, that's when you can cut your food off at 5 or 6 at night. Because even doing it, 3 to 5 nights a week will make a huge difference in your insulin sensitivity. Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to rest the cells so they become receptive to insulin again. So there's a place for it.
Rest, digest, heal. Yeah,
totally.
Weight gain is something I wanted to chat with you about. You shared a little bit kind of your personal story. And I just know that's such a huge problem for women, like in any stage of like hormone life. So I would love for you to just share your thoughts on that, because when it comes to hormone imbalances, and I noticed when I hit 40, like I was like much easier to put weight on. I was putting weight on in different places of my body than I had it before. And it's just, it's a different situation when you go to get that weight off. It doesn't come off as easily or in the same ways as it used to. Yeah. So just tell us what you think about that. What can women do who are really struggling with their weight?
Yeah. So I 100% relate. And the biggest pieces that we work on are, can we work on our thyroid? Because 1/3 of women have lower thyroid function. And one thing that I wish every woman knew, because God, I wish I knew it when I was 18 years old, is that the birth control pill actually reduces thyroid function. So if you've been on the birth control pill or you're now on HRT, we have to just remember that there is this one little thing that we have to really help with. So I want everyone to go and have a full thyroid panel, because you ought to check your antibodies, because so many women, they miss that. they might be flying just under the radar with their thyroid stimulating hormone test. The TSH test is really standard and typically the only one you'll get from your doctor. But you're like, hey, I want to actually test what my T3 and T4 and my antibodies are at. Because what if we're missing that you have Hashimoto's, which is a massive thing.
Yeah.
So we got to test that, because if it is hormonal, if it is thyroid related, then of course you're just slower at burning calories than the average bear, which means that we have to be extra careful and see how we can get your antibodies down. You may be told that you cannot treat Hashimoto's, that your antibodies will always stay elevated. I have not seen that in my practice. I've seen people get their thyroid antibodies into complete remission range by avoiding the foods they're profoundly allergic to. So it does require us like looking at our food allergies. And then we got to look at our microbiome, because unfortunately, I don't know if you've heard this, but they've taken people who are obese, they've taken their microbiome and put it into mice, and the mice become obese because there's a certain setup of our microbiome that unfortunately can have us gain more weight. So have you picked up something over your lifetime that's actually making weight really stubborn and difficult to get off?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we need to lean into the probiotics that actually help us with weight loss. And one of the great ones is focusing on sauerkraut, focusing on fermented veggies, because that's something that helps our body crave more vegetation. The problem with kombucha, it's grown on white sugar. So you're taking a beverage that's helping you create the microbiome that's going to crave more sugar.
Yeah.
So I actually am not a big fan of the bubbly beverages. I'm more like gut shots are the way to go, right?
Yeah.
Well, working on the microbiome is a big piece. Feeding your body the fibers that increase those wonderful short-chain fatty acids that really help. So flax is your best friend in menopause, because flax has been shown 2 tablespoons a day. I normally put it inside crackers, inside my bread. So if you're willing to make a couple things on a Sunday, it'll be so helpful. And the flax is incredible for helping to reduce our hot flashes, because it's also a phytoestrogen. So it's got the fiber, it's got the omega-3, but it also has these phytoestrogens that help buffer that transition time, so you're not falling off an estrogen cliff, but much safer than soy. So that's one of my favorite things. And I know that my answers are too long, but there's my...
Not too long. It's great. So we have just really looking at our gut health, looking at the allergens possibly that we might have, especially related to thyroid health, getting a full thyroid panel, making sure that's not an issue.
Mm-hmm. Those are all really big. And then, of course, blood sugar management with that continuous glucose monitor. Yeah. Get accountability. That's why I actually have a support group where women inside my group are just like reporting what they're eating, showing off what they're eating, and having constant feedback on what they're eating. And we run this amazing group called Thrive Hive. And most of the women, like it's mostly women in their late 40s, early 50s, having an incredible time together. We kind of have this Wednesday night love up where every Wednesday we get on the phone and just have an amazing time.
Yeah, I think that's huge. I love that you have that community, because I think that community is a big part of our health overall as well. And if you have women that are going through the same thing you are, have the same goals that you do, can cheer for you, and can like relate to, like, that's amazing.
It is amazing, because have you heard this crazy thing that we end up becoming the 5 closest people around us? So if you only have people in your life who are eating junk food and drinking wine at 9 and doing the whole, the wine at 9 is such a big one.
Yeah.
You don't have the positive role models and people holding you accountable to your best health. So that's why a lot of women are attracted to coming into a direct anti-inflammatory support group, because it's like, oh, we're all here to be the vanguard of our family, to be the pioneers, to bring back this amazing goodwill and be the positive light, to be the lighthouses in our own harbors. We need to have that light filled and be connected. And that's why I love what we do.
Yeah. So good. I think a lot of things that we've talked about, a lot of symptoms that are that women experience that are common, like, the fatigue, the weight gain, the hair loss, the hot flashes in menopause, like, because they're common, a lot of women just think that that's something they just have to go through, that it's normal, quote unquote, because it's common. So at what point would you recommend a woman getting professional help for, some of these health struggles in her life? What it would be like, this is your sign to reach out.
Well, look at the 5 symptoms of inflammation. So do you have redness, heat, swelling, pain, or loss of function in any part of your body? Or is your mental health tanking? Like, are you feeling cranky? Are you feeling brain fog? Like, remember, we look at these 4 symptoms and we're like, oh, we're not so bad. But the 5th symptom's everywhere. Loss of function, like loss of flexibility, loss of brain power, loss of memory, loss of focus. Those are all really big symptoms for us to get help. And I think most people could use help through their whole life. Like, what's so funny is, like, if I only had help when I was a teenager, and then it's like, oh, if I only had help when I was like 30 and wanted to have kids, like if I only had help in perimenopause. And so many people wait until they're flat out can't function and say, oh, well, now I have permission to take care of myself. Where it's like, I say, like, the second you feel like you're not living your best life, why not get into some sort of support? And that's the great thing, is like, we're here to handle it before things fall apart, because medical doctors are there for extreme emergencies. They're great at broken bones and surgeries, but to really get to blood sugar management and happy hormones and all those good things, we want to really work as early as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, reach out. Like, the more knowledge you can get about yourself through testing, and education, like, the better off you're going to be. Like, it's never too early to get that.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed. I am so thankful for your time with us here on this podcast episode, but I also want to say just thank you for what you're doing in the world. Thank you for serving women so well, for being that, like, voice of hope and encouragement to us. So just keep doing what you're doing, and thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here. And thank you for creating this space. Like, we get an opportunity to hold space with all this amazing audience that you have. So thank you for doing this beautiful podcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening to today's episode on the Daily Wellness Podcast. We hope that you found it helpful for your own wellness journey. And if so, we'd love for you to leave a review. Then come back and listen for review shoutouts on upcoming episodes. For more information, check out the show notes and connect with us on our website, dailywellnesscommunity.com.